Hello everyone, welcome to Undo the Tree. My name is Balozi Ezrak, and once again, I'm pleased you have taken another time to join me on this podcast. I'm happy you are here. Our topic of today is what is good or bad about bleaching? What is good or bad about bleaching? Or someone else can say, is it good or is it bad to bleach? So that's the question of today. However, before we dive into the question, I'll tell you a little bit about Undo the Tree. But before that, I just want to point out that we are doing this to improve one another. And like I always say, myself or those at Undo the Tree, nobody knows everything. I give you, or we give you, our point of view. You pass has your point of view. That's how we grow together, or we grow one another. It is also important to know that with these topics we select, we cannot cover all the points in one day. Remember, we only just start this podcast, so we are going to have a lot to discuss. And because of the length of the podcast, we are not going to talk about everything in one episode of a podcast, right? We only give some light so that whenever you listen to us, you have something to take or you have something to think about. You can always expand from there. If we say something, you don't always have to stop from there and waiting for another podcast or to take it just what we say. What is important is when you have been told about something, your responsibility is to make sure you look at what has been said. You can add a little bit research behind the back as well to see these things. Maybe you never think about these topics. Another important part is that when you listen to us and you have some concern, you have some thoughts, you can always ask. Don't take things just the way you hear them. We are here to make sure you understand. That's the most important part. So if you just take what you think and you didn't understand exactly what we say, then that is wrong. Another point I want to point out is that whatever we say here, we only tell you what we think. It is up to you to take that decision, to make that change. You have to always have this in mind. Every time you hear somebody talking about something, you're reading a book, a lot of these are usually views from people. You don't know who was writing the book. What was he thinking? Where was he from? And these are some of the most important things you should always think. Even when you're watching something on YouTube, you're listening something on the radio, you are on social media and you just heard something. Don't just take it as it is. Try to make sure you try to understand these information passed by. This is the role of Andunda, because we feel that there are so many things that people put out there, but there's not always a time for somebody to come and explain these issues. But nothing is new here, we just have to educate each other. So now you understand that for those who don't know much about Undo the Tree, like I've always said, we start with giving a little introduction about Undo the Tree so that you have knowledge about what this is. We are a platform that aims to share simple knowledge, but yet very important. We realize that in today's world, common sense is no longer common. This is why we felt it was important discussing these topics, to pick on different topics that often people don't talk about. People ignore them, but they are important. They affect us in our everyday's life. There's different ways you can get involved. We are on TikTok. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, and we are on YouTube. Just type Undo the Tree and you found us. We also have a website which is undothetree.com. Found a way you can get involved. We also have an introduction video on YouTube about Undo the Tree that explains what is Undo the Tree, what we do in more details, what benefits comes with it, what can you do to support us, what other services that comes with this school of common sense. I'm sure now you know what Undo the Tree is all about. You know what we request or ask from you. And without taking too much time, it is now the time we dive into this topic. The topic of today, like I said, is what is good or what is bad about bleaching. So I will break this topic in few small questions so that we can understand clearly what I'm talking about here. Remember, at Undo the Tree is simple and the basics. In order to answer this question, one of the parts that we look at is how did this came about, or what were the reason behind people starting to bleach. But I'm not gonna get into much details about this. I'm only just gonna show a little bit why people were doing this. The second part we are going to look at is who does it and why. So it means that who bleach and why. The third part would be what is good about bleaching, and the fourth part will be what is bad about bleaching. These are positive and negative part, and then we conclude. At the end of this podcast, you should be able to grasp around whether it is good or whether it is bad to bleach, whether you should yourself do it or you should not do it. Looking this in a simple way, I would say that bleaching is not a new thing. It's something that started a long time ago. It goes way back to history. Egyptians within history, they were doing this. I am not going to get into the history like I said. This is common sense. If you want to learn deep about a topic, I've already explained what is important to do. But I just want to point out that this bleaching idea is not something that just started 1999. It is an historical thing that started a long time ago. But it has changed and influenced or pushed by other mechanisms. Therefore, I'm not going to look at why those who started doing it historically. Like I said, the Egyptians of many years, why they were doing it. We are going to focus more on modern age. We are going to focus today because this type of common sense or this type of education focus more on what we can do now. Let's say, for example, if something was wrong in years, rather than focusing on the history, what can we do now? Should we continue to be doing something that was wrong? If something was right and it has now changed or whatever, should we continue to do it? This is the idea, or this is what we focus on when we break down or we talk about these topics. The second question was who does it and why. The majority of the people who bleach are black or brown people. You might find also some other race that also bleach, and I'm sure you've been around where you have seen celebrities. Some of your favorite celebrities, you used to see them. Their pictures a couple of years ago looks quite different. Somebody might look a little bit dark, but as years goes by, you start seeing change. These celebs become very light, but before, it used to be kind of like people can do this in a secret, or you'd think maybe it's a camera, they add a light on, but things now have come clearly because this move is being done by many people to the point where sometimes you found it difficult to know whether is this her real or his real color, or is this something else. Sometimes you might ask yourself, is this a mixed race girl? Or I'm sure these questions have tapped into your head when you are looking around maybe on social media, or you meet people that you don't know and you start wondering, you ask yourself these questions. It's a confusion that we all get in where sometimes you don't know what is what. On top of that, before going to look at what is good about this, if you go years back around colonial slavery, there were different episodes that took place. People received different type of racism, and in some ways, people who had light skin, they were considered with those of white color. They were having a lot of opportunity or some form of opportunity. This advantage pushed a lot of people started this process of bleaching, finding a way to try to turn themselves much lighter in order to actually benefit from, this benefit they receive, or to avoid these, racism they were actually receiving. And one of the most popular people to ever do this kind of, even if it was not done by lotions, the way people do it today, was Michael Jackson. Everybody knows about Michael when it comes to this, and you probably have heard his reasons behind it. So, and that brings us to the reason why people do it. I've presented why people used to do it, but because this podcast focus today or now, we can look at some of the reason why people does it today. Among many reasons why people bleach today, one of the reason, this idea of that white color or light color is beautiful than dark skin. So those of light skin are more beautiful than dark skin. And within this, it comes of what we see, those of white color being seen as above those who are from black skin. Like I said, this is an historical thing. This is something that has taken time as, years went by, and it was not just the idea of just the color itself. It is a lot of things that were put in place to actually show white supremacy, how white people are superior to other race. There are so many things that were done to show that brown skin, dark skin is not at the same level with the white skin. So these are some of the reasons why this idea of beauty has played a part of this. As I said, when you look at somebody whose light is more likely to be seen beautiful. And if you look around, or if you hear the testimony of many people who bleach their skin, some of these people suffer certain things such as discrimination, just like I mentioned earlier. Others I see, let's take an example of two beautiful girls, black, brown girls. One is dark, one is light. So according to what you hear a lot among people, they will tell you that light-skinned girl, she's more likely to attract more guys than the brown-skinned girl. And if you think about this, it becomes more like a psychological thing. It looks like it's just something simple, but it becomes more like a psychological thing because it affects you in one way or another. Mentally, it affects you. It is from that moment where you start feeling you are not beautiful enough. Whether people tells you this, or whether, you look at yourself and thinking, why my friends usually receive such comments, this and that. What about me? And it is the moment where you start feeling like there is something wrong with me. And this is not just ideally on skin color. There's so many things around the beauty. But remember, in this topic or in this podcast, we are focusing mainly on this idea of turning your skin from a bit darker or dark to light skin. So from that moment, you will see a lot of people suffer from what you can see as not confidence enough or not embracing enough what they are or who they are. And this idea of thinking that, okay, I'm not good enough, I'm not beautiful enough, it takes that confidence to the point where you decide that, no, I have to do what I can to try and make sure that I do something. I use these lotions or any other things, tablets or whatever, to try to make your skin a bit lighter. Remember, I said historically there was an idea of racism, right? But in modern age, it becomes more a thing of beauty or a thing of going extra, because there is no one who can actually define beauty for everybody, because what is beauty in your eyes might not be beautiful in my eyes. What I see to be gorgeous might not be gorgeous in your eyes. So who's there to decide that this is what is beautiful? Who should say this is what is beautiful? And let's say if your friend is receiving positive comments about being beautiful, right? Is this mainly about his or her skin color? Or this might be the way probably she was created, or there might be other attributes that make her or him receive this kind of comment? Or if it because somebody receive some positive vibes than yourself, should that push you to transform yourself one way to the other? Those are questions probably for you to think about and to look at. But like I said, these things can be psychological, can penetrate in us to the point where one cannot be able to actually think deep. It is where somebody has lost all the confidence and he or she will feel like he has no other choice, she has no other choice, and the only choice she has is to start bleaching. So that is one side. Another side is the influence, and this play a very huge role in our society. When I say influence, the biggest people to influence people are celebrities. And you will see, if you take the idea of taking pictures, for example, you look at yourself, you are often different comparing to a picture that you might have. If you look at a picture of yourself that was edited, the skin was edited, the tone of your skin color. Sometimes people might forget that was you. And this is the image of celebs, right? A lot of celebrities, when you see them in real life, they are completely different comparing to when they are on camera, they are in the movie, they are in a music video, they are at work. And this has played a very huge positive and very negative impact when it comes to the transformation of our society today. Many people have felt not good enough. A lot of young people have suffered where they have to feel like they are not good enough. You look at celebrities such as Beyonce, Rihanna, you name it, they want to become like that. A young girl can be growing up thinking that I want to be like Rihanna. But the Rihanna that young girl is saying is the Rihanna of the camera. The Rihanna who spend a lot of money to come on a camera to look at the way she look on the television, in a magazine, or on a social media. But this young girl might not have the capacity to think all these things, to think that there is also other things that is involved. Money, or this is an image that is constructed. A celebs become like a constructed image, becomes like a product. They are there to market themselves. When they are in the magazines, they are no longer the actual real people. They are now products. They are now brands. They are there to actually just catch your eyes. And this is the reason why they have huge team behind them. There are those who are there to put the makeup on. There are those who arrange what they are wearing. They can take 1,000 pictures. But among those 1,000 pictures, there could be only 2-3 pictures that will be shared. You've been through this, yeah? Where you take a lot of pictures. But among all these pictures you could have, there might just be 3-4 pictures that you feel like, wow, this is the best picture. And when you share that picture, you will see it's more likely to attract likes on social media, to attract comments comparing to the other picture. And that's how you have to picture this idea of celebs. So celebrity people have killed the society, but at the same time have also played a role to lift others. There's a positive side about them and there's a negative side about them. So these are some of the very important reasons that have an influence when it comes to people bleaching. There might be other reasons, but I will limit to these two because I think they are some of the most popular ones. Number one, you look at yourself and you feel like, because of the historical thing, that pressure that has been put in place on one race is beautiful than the other, which the celebs themselves, comes and show that in that party too, where the influence comes in. These are some of the reasons why we are where we are. So if we can now look at what is good about bleaching. Is there anything good about bleaching? And somebody might say, yes, there is. Because if you look at yourself, or if you look, like I said, at an edited picture, for example, you come to realize that people looks different. An edited picture is always looking better than the other picture, right? A video that you have taken on the light is always looks a little bit better than a picture that seems a bit dark. And even when you play with your skin, you add something on it, it's just like editing yourself. It's like when you put makeup, it's like you're creating yourself. It's like an art where, you put something in place. We will give you even some form of look, right? Because this idea of bleaching, you have to look at it just like an edited picture. So you just add something on top of what is already there to make it, a little bit what it has become. This can be nice. It makes you look good in the eyes, particularly for those who see the light skin as the form of beauty or what can be classified as beautiful. So one of the things that I said that played an important role is this idea that I said about attraction, right? And another thing I didn't mention about historically, this is the reason why I said I wasn't going to focus mainly on history, or I was going to focus mainly on what the majority of people does the bleaching for, because there's still a medical thing within this where people will be prescribed, with some form of lotions to eliminate spots and so on. But that's not what we're talking about here. We are talking about what the majority of people does, which is the idea of bleaching the body to the point where almost your entire skin is kind of transformed from one level to the other. That's what we are focusing in this topic. Our fourth question is, what is bad about bleaching? What I would say is there are so many negative things about bleaching, probably more than the positive side. And one of the negative things about bleaching, the biggest one, the most important one, is that you kind of like somebody who's wearing a mask, if it makes sense. You wear a mask and then you walk on a road thinking that this is me, but in reality that is not longer you, because you have used this chemical and that chemical and that chemical to transform yourself. It means that psychologically, like I said, this become as a circle. In your eyes, you undermine and you deny yourself. You deny yourself to the point where you feel like you are useless. From that moment, you are not good enough, right? And you let the voice of those 2, 3, 4 people that has come and say, oh, this is what is beautiful. The question is, if this is to change again, are you going to change that? If they say this type of hair is what is beautiful, are you going to change that hair? If they say, okay, your nails doesn't look good, these are the new style, are you going to change that from one thing to the other? Because that's one thing you have to be prepared for. Because if you look around the world with what is happening, for example, when I said the idea of beauty, there have been things that has been put in place with the industry that can make you transform yourself almost every part of your body. This is the reason why I said this topic has different parts when it comes to this idea of look, but today we are just going to focus mainly on bleaching. But the question I'm just trying to raise is that if people said you are not good enough because of your skin, okay, let's say if you have this kind of eyes, this is it. You've seen people in today's world who were contactless in the eyes. Even when they are not suffering from anything, this is supposed to be a medical thing, but now it has become like a fashion, right? It has become like a part of beauty. And it is this idea I usually say that we copy things. We see things and we copy them and we forget the consequence that comes with it. So one of the biggest things in that moment is that you lose yourself. You are no longer you as you're supposed to be. And that is quite terrible, because one of the questions you're going to ask yourself, let's say if you start bleaching at the age of 19, do you see a day that you ever feel like now I should stop, right? You are now lighter, proper lighter. Do you see yourself imagining and thinking that when I hit this particular age, that's when I should stop about this? Do you see that confidence? You imagine going back again to that skin color that I didn't want to have in the first place? Can you see yourself doing that? And if you look around people who have, who start bleaching and then stop, one of the things you come to realize is that they become much darker than they used to be, and yes, after years they often gain their skin color. I would imagine that based on what I have seen, but some people might not. So are you gonna feel confidence enough to go back to that skin color? You refuse, or are you going to use this chemical day in, day out until the day you die? That is the question for you to ask yourself. The second negative part about bleaching is your health itself, what you are doing to your skin, right? I'm not going to get into medical thing, but we both know when we were created differently and with reasons. For example, you have seen people shaving hair on their body, but we forget that everything that was put on our body was put there for reason. The person who created us was not a fool, especially for those who believe in God. If you feel like, God who created you was not a fool, was not stupid, to the point where you can feel that what he did, it wasn't a good job. I can make myself better. And if you don't believe in God, you believe we came from other form of creations, it will still be the same thing. You have to imagine that everything you have on your body has a role to play. And when you take that out, it might have some form of consequence. And often, whenever people want to do certain behavior, one thing you realize is that whether this is a bad habit or is a good habit, they always found a reason that they can portray to say, okay, I do this because of this. They will stand just for that particular point. I have seen even people who will use the Bible, who will use Quran in this kind of things. Like I just said, when I raised the question of when you start transforming yourself differently to how you were created, you are kind of questioning the creator that you didn't create me good enough. I can make myself good enough. If you say this thing to somebody and then somebody will go, oh, the Bible says says you should not look beautiful only from the outside, but from the inside too. And people will take a chapter like that, try to make this chapter look like, without actually understanding what exactly this means. And you say, okay, bleaching or wearing this is not a sin, or it's not this, it's not that, it's not this. Come on, I'm not trying to get into religion here, but if you just sit down and think about it, you create something in the way that you like. And before you know it, somebody else comes and says, no, this is not right. You believe you have done the wonderful job by creating or designing something to the point where you feel like there is nothing else to change from what you have created. For those who believe in God, you will hear that the Bible tells us that God created us in a form of His image. So if you praise God to be beautiful, it means that you represent the image of God. And when you start changing this, that means you already tell God, the time you spent to create me was not good enough. You should have done this, you should have done that. And don't take me wrong, I don't think there are many people out there who feel like they were created perfectly in the way that they would love to be. Almost everyone has something that they look on their body and feel like, I wish this nails was like this, I wish these fingers were like this. But do you go and change this, or should you go and change this? This is the reason why they say no one is perfect. But in the eyes of God, I'm saying in the eyes of God, you don't have to fall into God thing. I'm not trying to ask you to be religious here, but I'm saying as somebody who believes in God, you hear that we were created perfectly fine in the eyes of God. So don't sit there and say, okay, if you are a Christian, for example, and you decided to start bleaching today, and you go to church, or you decide, okay, I'm gonna transform myself, I'm gonna have this surgery or this or that and that and that, there's nothing wrong with that in the eyes of God. I don't see how you can imagine that. I don't see how you can arrive to think that way. And I would say what you're saying or what you're thinking is not true. That is just what you feel. Oh, this is not important. No, it is important. Remember, religiously, there's not sin. The Bible says again, that is bigger and small. Whatever you do, if it's a sin, is a sin. In the eyes of God, these things are sin the same. One person might kill somebody, and then the other person might insult somebody. These are considered at the same level. They are both considered as being wrong, as a sin. So if you choose to say, okay, this is not too bad, God is not looking at me this way. What you mean God is not looking at you this way? When is that God you believe that created you in every way that you look? He created you like that way. Are you saying He was not looking at you when He created you? Or are you saying once He created you, you're gone, right? It's not longer play any attention towards you. No, He watch every movement you make, every decision you take, whether you want to divide your lips to look to what you want to look, or you want to turn yourself lighter, you want to have a surgery, or whatever you want to do. You can give yourself as many reasons as you wish to give, but don't think on behalf of the person who created you or the other people who see you as now you have changed from one thing to the other. And this is the reason why you see people do this transformation and then they suffer from one way to another. But like I said, we understand some of the challenges that people may be going through. We take that in consideration and understand that. And I'm not saying that if you had a better reason to start bleaching, that, you didn't have a good reason or whatever. I'm just saying that, whatever decision you take, you have to look at this decision perfectly well, in a sense that don't just grasp one idea and say to yourself, oh, this is this. No, you have to look at a big picture. The second negative thing here is about your health, which can be damaged from this chemical. You imagine the lotion that you're using is actually chemical. Somebody might say, oh, I've been doing this for 15 years, but nothing has happened to me. That's fine. That's not what we are talking about. But I'm sure whatever you do to your body often have an impact. You will see people even bend themselves, perhaps on the face, and these things happen. And there are many negative things about this. And another thing is that you as a person of a society, this is something else you have to consider. We are always somebody role model. We always have somebody who's watching us or behind us. You have to know that whatever you're doing, somebody else is watching. There is somebody who's there to follow in your footsteps. And there is something really important that I want to point out that I have come come to understand. I will talk on behalf of has people of my skin, dark skin or black skin or brown skin. I don't know a really good term to use when it comes to this skin thing. I've seen this a lot on social media, or even when you speak, let's say, for example, with, people of black skin. When you as a man, you go and they fall in love with a white girl, for example, right? You hear the negative thing about this. And this happens a lot when it comes to celebrities, especially if something happened between that white girl and the black guy. If something happened, let's say a white girl, has taken an advantage, take them to court, or this lawsuit that you see. And then there's always like, oh, why black guys goes for white girls and this and that and that. That is one thing I just want to, I want you to pause so that I can put something in your understanding. One thing you come to realize is that when you're asking why these guys are going to the white girls, or what's so good about the white girls that is not on the black girls, I think you come to realize the same person who's saying this, the same girl who's saying this, it could be a guy, I'm just taking an example, let's say, of a girl, but female are more likely to raise this comment more than I've heard from the guys. You come to realize that this girl or this lady or this woman who's actually saying these things is among those women who have turned themselves light, who have bleached their entire body, right? You have bleached your entire body, and now you feel like you have a sense to question why a guy can go from dark skin to a white skin girl, when yourself you have proven that dark skin is not good enough. The light skin is what is beautiful. That's exactly what you're saying. That's exactly what you are showing. Being white is what is beautiful. So as a guy, if I am to follow your feet, instead of dating somebody who has bleached herself, don't you think it makes more sense to go and just date that natural white girl who's already light, instead of me going and date somebody who already feel like, she's not good enough, and what is good is being light. And if you are already bleached yourself to say that light skin is what is better, why would you question me as a man who's going for light skin? And when you say this is where you hear these things where people will give you reason that, the reason they do this, the reason they carry this hair or that, because guys have told them they are not good enough, like what I was saying. They are not beautiful enough and all this and that and that. Are you saying everybody who's light skin is the one who's beautiful? What about the dark skin? The dark skin who are beautiful, who we all admire, who are in a relationship. What about the men? Because men bleach, but if you look in comparison to women, the majority of people does this when it comes to black people are women. So what about those people who don't bleach? How many friends do you have who have not been in a relationship because their skin is dark? Yeah. How many great men or great women have you attracted because you done a transformation going from dark skin to light skin? So remember what I said, sometimes people will use a narrative to actually prove their point, but when there is something else that is inside, they don't want to show that. I would say if you are somebody who's bleaching yourself, you shouldn't question somebody from your skin color who goes for the light skin guy or the light skin girl, because if you do that, you look like there is a lack of sense in your head. In a contrast can prove standing for yourself, staying firm of who you are, can actually prove that this is what I'm worth of. I'm sure we have looked at what is bad about bleaching and what is good about bleaching, right? Like I said, there might be other details there. There may be other things that perhaps you feel like I should have said, and this is the reason why I often say I cannot say everything. I can only tell you things I feel like you should hear, just to think about them in the first place. Otherwise, these questions or these topics can go on and on and on and on. To summarize, before I conclude this, I showed the history of one of the reasons why people were bleaching. Historically, it was an historical thing that I didn't say why it was done during Egyptian people and all that. I didn't want to get into that. But then I looked at, in our generations where people start bleaching because of this racism and all that, where white skin was promoted or was seen want to be beautiful. And as I said, there's so many things that, we, the brown and black skin, do to try to copy from the white people, even though we blame them, we raise this, or they think they are superior. Of course, they think they are superior, and they should be thinking that way, because whatever they do, you just trying and copy that. Whatever they become, you try to follow that. It is until the moment where you say, you know what, you believe in yourself individually, collectively, and just like how they believe themselves. They believe themselves themselves and they promoted their race. I don't see any terrible thing about that. You can also do the same. They're doing that because they feel they have the power to do so. It is important, but you, if you keep navigating, changing from one side to the other, it's up to you, right? So I also demonstrated a part of racism. There are people who bleach because of medical ideas. Again, I didn't want to get into medical, whatever expertise there, you can look at that, but I was mainly focusing on those who bleach because they want to look beautiful. They want to look nice, because that medical thing, it was a thing of spots on the body, but some other research might prove you different things. Whether this works, it doesn't work, like I said, I'm not here to question that. But ideally, I just want to point out that for those who speak from medical side, for the skin, medically, it is done to eliminate something. It is not done for somebody to bleach his or her entire body, right? When people go and bleach the entire face, the entire arms and legs and this and that, this is this idea of, people doing it because they want to look different, from what they look like. So that is the summary. In conclusion, what should be done on individual level? On individual level, I would say the first thing first is for you to take a minute and look at yourself. If you practice this activity, you might have to question it again and look at it. Look at that question that I asked. Are you willing to continue this way to the rest of your life, right? And if people, let's say, people don't accept you from what you are now, should you blame them? Because you seems that you don't have a confidence yourself to accept yourself of who you are, right? You don't accept yourself of what you are. How do you expect other people to accept you, right? How do you expect other people to see you as awesome or beautiful when you have transformed yourself from one version to the other? So you have to look at that, and then you have to look at from your health-wise. And I would say it's never too late. The person who's talking to you, I might have asked myself maybe in that, I might have bleached my face or my arms, my legs, or this or that. There are many people who does it, but a lot of people sometimes do this kind of things because of, like I said, the influence. Might not just be that you feel like you are not good enough or you're ugly or this or that. It could be just the influence from friends, from families, from celebrity and all that. But you have to understand that everyone does what they do for a reason. But that's not you though. You have to come to a conclusion. But if you decide, okay, that's what you are going to do, and you have to embrace that and bite into that, and no excuses. Whatever other things that I pointed out, you have to take, there's no excuse. Oh, because no, there can't be excuses. Once you already see the light skin or the white is what is mostly beautiful, you cannot just go there and say, oh, this is what people are racist or they are this. They think they are better than us. You're just being dumb. Because if you look around you and things that you are doing, you are coping to try to be like somebody, you already show that they are better than you anyway. Why would you go and, accuse them? You're just accusing them. You're just accusing them. They think this. They think that way because you adore them. You worship them. You worship what they do. So if you were doing these things in the years that has passed, it's not too late for you to change that. And don't go and say, okay, if I change it today, everybody now does it. I'm not gonna. No, change starts with you. Remember where we are, it didn't just happen in one day. This is an historical thing, generation after generation. So you have to be careful and look at that, we are living under slavery, under colonizations without admitting it. Call yourself, we're an independent country, we're an independent society. But when the things that you do, you're still living under colonial, right? Even without being forced, the decisions you are making, it still show that I'm not free. And there are so many things that brown and black skin color people do. This is on individual level. It's for you to look at this and take a decisions. Do a little bit more research if you need more information about this topic. If you need help, at least psychologically, there's always people who can assist you on how you can gain the confidence to become what exactly you are, because you are kind of like somebody who's living in a mask where yes, you could go on the camera and look beautiful in a picture or this or that or that or that, but the reality is sometimes you think about it and you look at yourself, you have to know that, oh, this is not natural. This idea of being natural or this and that and that. So that is from individual level. On a country level, there's also something that can be done, because since these activities, it's not good for us brown and black people in the first place. It is something that continue to make us lose our existence. These are activities that are put in place for you as a black brown person or black brown countries to continue to live under slavery or under colonization, to continue continue worshiping the white race, to continue seeing as what is from the white race is superior. It is until these changes are made, small change like this, that our society change. That's how we are going to get to the place where we feel like we are independent. It is until then, you can celebrate as many independence as you wish or as you like as countries, but until these decisions are made to actually go back to what you are or to who you are and accept that and start doing things that belong to you, avoid a copy of somebody else. I'm not saying everything that you will do will actually belong to you. You never see something else that somebody does or the other race does and you feel like, I cannot take it. No, you can take a positive things, but this itself, you can see there are more negative points on this particular subject than what is positive. You lose yourself, you deny yourself, you refuse yourself. So the government can put a measure in place. Western countries does this. Asian countries, let's say like China, put this measure in place. Yes, they can call them dictator, they can call them that and that and that and that. But when you're taking decisions that are there to try to help your citizen, I don't see what is terrible or wrong about that. So African or black countries can actually put a law in places that can discourage these activities that has been going on for years. And when you look at it, it's becoming more and more and more, and this is similar to this idea of makeup and all this. That's the reason why I said there's so many things there that people can look at, and it is until when you take proper decision and take that risk, it is the moment that we will discover ourselves as black and brown people. But the only problem is that we don't like to sacrifice anything. In my other episode I have said a lot of black people, they just like changes that are easy, that are seen are nice or whatever. They don't like taking risk to say that, no, from today I'm going dark skin. I've made decision, I'm going dark skin. If this is a girl or a female, can say, okay, whoever going to like me has to like me from who I am. If he's a man, he has to say, okay, whoever who's gonna like me with my dark skin, he has to like me as what I am. One of the most important thing I want to point out is we have to always stop trying to blame others, to run away from our responsibility and blame others, put excuses in place. If there was something like that, give other people reasons years back, it might not be the actual reality today. What you do today, as I'm talking to you, as I'm sharing this common sense with you, whatever decision you make now and today, is what counts going forward. There's no excuses. Unless you have a better excuse, then that's okay. No, I would say unless you have a better reasons, because if you say excuse, it will sound more a bit negative. So unless if you have a better reasons, for these things, then you might present them or you might continue to do what you want to do. But if not, it is a time to take the right decisions, and this should not wait tomorrow, the next day, or, next year. This goes from individual level to country level. It is for these reasons you're going to make a change, and change goes slowly. You might put something in place and you think, this is not gonna go anywhere because the majority of people are already doing this anyway. And you have to remember that before the majority of people started doing this, it was only perhaps one person who started it, So the government has to put measure that can discourage doing these activities. For example, put a measure on companies that bring this product within the country. This is to help build a future of a black brown person naturally of who they are. And I use this idea of, skin color, but this may not just be about the skin color. That's what I've been pointing out. It could be a change that you need to transform. You can just replace the skin color to what you've been doing, that you just been copying from somebody or pretending to be what, but you are not. Kind of use it like that. You have to look at it like that, and you have to be able to try as much as you can to take responsibility or big decisions. It's a sacrifice sometimes. It requires to make a sacrifice. It's not gonna be cool just as soon as you do it, but trust me, in the long term, it's gonna be proper, nice, beautiful, and real, because that's what you are. That's who you are. So I hope you learned something from this topic. I also hope that after listening to this, you make some change within your life. So once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking time to be part of Andunda Tree. I do believe it's part of common sense, as I always say, to make sure that you spread this message if you think it's important, if you think somebody else should hear it. I can also encourage you to share your point of view on these topics. Whether you agree, tell us why you agree. If you disagree, tell us why you disagree. If there was something that, I did not mention that you think that it should have been in this podcast, yes, speak to us, let us know, and we can always mention mention this in another episode, we can point this out, or we can put a topic about that particular point you have raised. We are here to share knowledge, to educate one another. We learn from you, you learn from us. So once again, follow us or subscribe or become our member depending on which platform you want to engage with us. TikTok, Andunda Tree, Instagram, Andunda Tree, YouTube, Andunda Tree, Facebook, Andunda Tree. We have a website that is andundatree.com. We have started the journey. We're still fresh in this. So we want to hear from you so that we can improve every day. We can make change on what we bring to you. Thank you so much. And until next time, one love.